Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. It's called the Avrum Rosensweig Show. My name is indeed Avrum Rosensweig, and the series that we are undertaking today and in previous weeks, and God willing, well into the future, is called Parsha Prose, and is together with my co-host, my very dear friend, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara. How are you, Rabbi?
I'm very well, Avrum. And, just to start our discussion with a small episode, I just came from Yerushalayim yesterday, and I think it was on Shmini Atzeret in Israel. I went into a shul, many Americans. In general, there are many Americans in Jerusalem, especially on Yamim Tovim, although this year it was less than regular years because the matzav, the situation. And someone came to me and said, "You're Rabbi Gemara?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Wow, I actually listened to some of your episodes. I really enjoyed it." I said, "Wow, that's something. People in Jerusalem listen to us. This is wonderful." So you should know that we spread the Torah all over.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And does it make you happy?
Happy, I'm not sure it's the right word, but I feel kind of fulfillment. Because we both spend time over this, and we obviously, listen, we don't get any money, we don't get any benefits from it. We really want to bring an authentic voice to the world, and I think that we manage to do it every week. That a good feeling, not happiness, it's a good feeling and sense of fulfillment.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And then maybe after 120, we'll come to the pearly gates, and one of the angels will say, "Oh, you're Rabbi Gemara. I watched some of your podcasts."
Well, you know what? I hope he will not say this was so bad.
He'll be a harsh critic, angel. Yes. Now, Rabbi, if you don't mind, and I know you won't, that before we get started here, I really, really want to take a moment to pay tribute to our IDF brothers and sisters.
Please.
And I want to put a picture up here over our faces. And I want to tell you who this man is. He's with his children. His name is Gilad El-Malech. He's 30 years old, was 30 years old, father of 5 sweet children, and the husband of Shir. He did over 200 reserve days this year. He's a Torah scholar who, for his 30th birthday, he didn't want parties. He wanted to continue to have the time to study more Mishnayot and Torah. He was a civil engineer, a volunteer and devoted father and loving soul. A 94-year-old Holocaust survivor came to his funeral, and they asked him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Gilad always helped me. These are the best of our sons who give their lives for their homeland." Just a moment of silence.
Just incredibly sad. Over the last 2 days, I go into each one of my classes and I ask them to dedicate their learning to one of the fallen soldiers. One of them, Avi Goldberg from Jerusalem, a father to eight kids, a teacher himself in Himmelfarb, Jerusalem. Such a wonderful guy. I actually met him here in Toronto. He was teaching Torah in Tennessee, and about 12 or 13 years ago, they had a conference here in Toronto of all the shlichim from Israel in the Beit in Thornhill. And I was invited to talk to them. As such a warm, nice, incredible educator. And you know what? It's now he left behind him like a family, eight people who will carry it with them for the rest of their life. And he did it for us. He did it to protect the Jewish people.
when a man like that passes away, when he's gone, and this fellow here whom we spoke of, Gilad, and this morning we got news that 4 young men, 20 years old, 21 years old, died fighting in Lebanon or fighting in Gaza. You're a father of 8, Kanina Hora. Should all be well, your children. What does this do to you when you get such news, Rabbi?
It just breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. I do remember, listen, I was in the first Lebanon war, and as I told you, and I already had 2 kids at home. But to think about parents with 8 kids, one was killed last week with 10 kids, 10 kids. It's very hard to grasp. And I think that I told you 2 weeks ago how when I had 6 children, my commander came and said, you have to leave Tzahal. And I wanted to continue. And he said, no, you did to Am Yisrael more than any soldier can do. And in a way, looking backward, maybe he was right. But I believe that this kind of discussion happened a lot between commanders and their soldiers. And the soldiers of our generation, of these generations, are strong. And they are willing to sacrifice their life to protect Medinat Israel and the Jewish people. After what they saw in October 7th, I believe that they relive what many people lived after the Holocaust. We must be strong. We will give any gift and every present to the Jewish people, even if it means our own life. And in Israel, I saw many of them, people in their 50s, people in their late 40s, going to the army like simple soldiers. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You know, when I think of the loss of these young men, late teens, I can't help but think of my own son, who's 18 years old. And I am blessed, I guess, in some ways, to be sending him off to university. I say blessed in some ways because it's a schut. To me, it's a schut to send your child off to the tzava. But with that schut comes such danger. I don't experience that with my son going downtown every day to the University of Toronto campus. And then the next thing I think about is, you know, how much work you put into your child, and watching them every single day for their life, 365 days a year. In the case of my boy, 18 years, seeing him grow, seeing him change, seeing him go through his challenges, the difficulties, the tribulations. And then with these Israeli parents, to get the news that their child is now gone, to think about, that's it. It's the end of it. It's the end of it. I'll never see my son again. That's it. It just moves me so much. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It should move everyone. And, you know, this is the worst nightmare of any parent, obviously. But with the Jewish people are used every year at this time. You know, on Rosh Hashanah, we read the story about the Akedah, where Avrum was commanded to bring his own son at the Korban. And eventually it didn't happen. But I think this story is telling us something incredible that God wanted to send through the Jewish generation down. There will be cases where parents will do the Akedah. Will do the Akedah. And unfortunately, in the last year, we have more around 1,500 korbanot, pure people, young people. All life is in front of them. So much potential there. And I don't know how to grasp it. I don't know. You know what? Once this thought entertained my brain, I try to reject it. But being a Jew is also giving your soul and the heart to understand the pain of someone else. So we will never understand what does that mean. But we have to think about it. We have to be aware to the fact that there is a void here created by the 1,500 fallen people that we have to fill. And in Hebrew, a fallen soldier is called halal. And halal in Hebrew means two things. One, a person who falls through action or a war. And the other one is like an empty space. And Hebrew it's one of the most beautiful words, very tragic words, that describe exactly what happened when a young soldier is falling. He creates such a void that we have to enter in and to try to feel it as much as we can.
Rabbi, when you say to be a Jew is to feel for somebody else to experience empathy, where does that come from? Where's that concept from?
I think that it was there all the time. From Avrum to Yitzchak to Yaakov, who felt for the other one. And it was crystallized in Egypt. In Egypt, a whole nation put under terrible stress and hard work. And if they would not care about each other, the redemption from Egypt would never happen. Mm-hmm. And if you read carefully the first chapter of the book of Exodus, you see that in the middle of the darkness, where the life and the future of the Jewish people was under enormous danger, two beams of light, the Me'aldot, the women who were the people responsible for the babies, they brought their kindness and solidarity, and they tried to help them as much as they could. And because of them, we were redeemed from Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that Egypt apparently was a great school of solidarity and caring about each other. And when Moshe Rabbeinu is going out from the palace, it said, "Vayetze lirot besivlotam." He went out to see their suffering, their misery. And that's what made him a great Jewish leader. Not only receiving the Torah, but the ability of a person to feel with his heart, mind, and soul the suffering of someone else.
And in Moshe Rabbeinu's case, to literally go and look for it, which is what Avram Avinu did when the strangers walked by. He left God. He looked for chesed.
Absolutely. And there is no question that the Torah choose to present us Moshe Rabbeinu not in the beginning, not as the receiver of the Torah, but as a person who cares about his brothers. Although he could ignore, he was living the dream in the palace of Paro. He cared, and that's what means to be a Jew, certainly what means to be a Jewish leader.
And to the extent that it's said that if you find a Jew who is not caring of someone else, their Judaism is suspect, right?
Absolutely.
Rabbi, I love when you come back from Israel, mostly because I miss you as my partner in this show and as a friend. But I also love when you're a purveyor of life. You witness things. You watch very closely. I'm like that too. You have a journalist's soul in many ways. So let me ask you before we dive into Parsha and Prose this week, any very compelling or interesting experiences that you had in Israel you can share with us?
I had many, Avrum. We should devote a whole podcast to things that I saw in Israel. I saw many things. First of all, let me tell you, like walking on Erev Yom Tov, I came mamash on Wednesday, the eve of Sukkot. You go on the streets of Israel and you know right away you are in a different planet. Like people are running with the lula, with the etrog, and it's not like in shuls. I'm talking about the streets of Jerusalem. In every corner, you have like a table. On the table, etrogim, lulavim, Adassim, Aravot, it's like you just think that you are in a movie, like not the real life, but these are the real life. This is like number one. The last one, I want to tell you, this was a very, very interesting experience that you might actually like a lot, because you told me about your minyan in the forest. So my daughter, and you could see the view in one of our episodes on the balcony in Jerusalem. She lives in Baka, in a beautiful place. And on Yom Tov, I hear beautiful music coming from Museum Teva, which is like under her a 4 stories building. And beautiful singing, but not like a singing in a shul, because the dominant voices are women. So there is a progressive community in Jerusalem that apparently come from time to time to be together, to daven. It was a day of Tfilat Geshem. And listen, for me as an Orthodox Jew, it was very strange. But at the same time, I must say it was beautiful. Beautiful to the point that I went down from my apartment just to see it. And then I realized that this is so amazing. Jews are coming from all over the world. They want to be in Israel. They are different from each other. And somehow, people are walking. In Baka, you have like very Haredi people. You have progressive people. You have all the Jews in the world. And somehow we all united around our tefillot and around our spiritual life. So even though sometimes we cannot tolerate different opinions and minhagim of someone else, there is something really beautiful about Yom Tov and Jerusalem that bring all the Jews together. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I think will resonate with me for a long time.
Where did you get your lulav and etrog?
My son is a tzaddik. He bought me in advance. I called him and I said, Netanel, please buy me the lulav and etrog. And this year, he got me like a lulav. I have to tell you, like, I had to be careful that it's not going to touch the ceiling.
Or hit somebody else.
So, yeah, my son got me a beautiful lulav and etrog.
And your etrog, what did your etrog look like?
A regular one. I mean, regular. It was a beautiful one, but listen, I saw people taking the Yemenite etrogim. I don't know if you saw them. It's
I've
like
seen it.
A avatiach, like a watermelon.
Yeah.
And they bring it and they have to hold it and to get some support in order to shake it.
Rabbi, I remember I was in Chabad many years ago, and the Rebbe was still alive, and I believe he had an etrog without a pitom on it, without the tip on it. Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what's the story with the pitam. Actually, many people don't want to touch an etrog with pitam. The reason is that normally the pitam should fall because it's a very delicate fruit, and the pitam that grows on top of the etrog normally falling down. If it stands there, the reason is that it might be a product of a lemon, which is much stronger, and an etrog, which for many halachic authorities is disqualified by it. So it used to be that by the Orthodox community, you don't take an etrog with a pitam. What happened in the last 20 years, something quite incredible, and I'll tell you how I know it, because I myself wanted to learn the whole thing about etrogim. So I went to Kfar Chabad. They have the first orchard of etrogim, magnificent one, the Garelic family, and I worked there to understand better what's going on. And there is a special spray that you spray on the etrog, and it keeps the pitam on the etrog. So this way you get the pitam and the etrog. So you take a little bit technology, which is going to be the topic of our discussion today, and makes the etrog look nicer.
Okay, very good. So I want to dive in here, but I have to ask you this question because it keeps coming to mind. When you wanted to understand ancient Rome, you went to Rome and you studied to be a tour guide. When you want to understand how correctly to blow a shofar, you studied the horn for a little while. When you wanted to understand the etrog or the piton, b'chulu, you went to Kfar Chabad, where they. Is there a tip in all of this for others on how to develop themselves?
Be curious. Be curious. It's very, very important. And I think it gives you some appreciation to Jewish life. Like, don't do it just because, like, etrog, because lulav. Go and see how exactly it works and what the Torah actually wants you to do. So yes, I actually, when I was much younger and I traveled to Sinai, the first thing I went to see is the lulavim in Sinai, in the peninsula of Sinai. I wanted to see how they take them down. And, then all the lulavim came from Sinai. And who brought you the lulav? All the Bedouin who made fortunes from the Jewish lulavim. And then I wanted to see the difference between this one and the Beit She'an lulav, because they are different. They are different. And I don't know. I think it gives me a greater appreciation to the mitzvot of lulav and hadassim. And trust me, I try to grow hadassim. It's a very hard thing to do, by the way. And yeah, with the shofar, it's the same. Matzah, for sure. For years, I used to go and to do the hand matzah myself. Since I was 14 years old, every year on the eve of Pesach, I was part of Chabura doing it. I don't know. I think like working with your fingers and your body gives you a better appreciation to the mitzvot of the Torah. And let me tell you, sometimes we are doing it here. I think that more of our students of us are touched by the mitzvah of baking challah, for example, or hafrashat challah, rather than many lectures in the classroom. It just gives you a feeling that your entire body is involved in doing a mitzvah.
So be experiential. And I think the corollary to that is that when you and I start a shul or when you and I start a school, it'll be experiential in that nature, right?
Absolutely.
There we go. That's what the Jewish world needs. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're doing Parsha and Pro once again. You'll notice that we did not do Parshat Bereshit, but we're in discussion about how to bring that to you because it's incredibly important Parsha. That being said, today we're concentrating on Parshat Noach, and we are doing that through the lens of a book and a movie called The Circle. Let me tell you a little bit.
Oh, there is a movie? I didn't know.
Yeah, I watched the movie. Yeah, it was very good.
Is it good?
It's reasonable. Yeah.
Reasonable. Okay.
It's reasonable. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, I have to say, we could use some other books more classic. Usually we try to go to the classic. This book is not a classic. It's an interesting book. I would say even predicted the future. The Circle certainly predicted the future, although it was written, I believe, only 12 years ago.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Every 2-3 years now, it's so amazing that technology progress in such leaps that 12 years ago, you think that, wait a second, what happened on the streets? Dinosaurs walked there. You can't believe that, it was only 12 years ago when we didn't hear about AI and Google was not as strong as today, and Tesla did not start to market their cars and so on and so on. So, yes, it's quite amazing.
It is amazing. Absolutely. The movie, by the way, is with Tom Hanks, and I love everything that he's in. I just thought that I thought I would be more compelled. The book was more compelling. So let me just walk you through both of these, Parsha Noach and The Circle. The Torah portion of Noach covers the narrative of Noah and the Great Flood, found in Genesis 6-9. In this account, God observes the widespread wickedness of humanity and decides to cleanse the earth through a flood. However, Noah, described as a righteous man, finds favor in God's eyes. He's instructed to build an ark to save himself, to save his family, and pairs of every animal species. As the floodwater rises, Noah, his family, and the animals embark on their journey, enduring the storm for 40 days and for 40 nights. After the flood, God establishes a covenant with Noah, symbolized by a rainbow, promising never to destroy the earth by flood again. This portion highlights themes of divine judgment, mercy, the importance of obedience, and the renewal of creation. Now, the book or the movie, The Circle, is by Dave Eggers. It's a dystopian novel that explores the implications of a powerful tech company, The Circle, which merges social media, digital identity, and surveillance in a single platform. The story follows May Holland, who is excited to join The Circle, drawn in by its innovative culture and the promise of connection. As she becomes increasingly immersed in the company's ideology, she encounters the dark side of transparency and constant connectivity. The novel raises critical questions about privacy, the ethics of technology, and the consequences of a society that prioritizes total visibility over individual autonomy. Through May's journey, Eggers critiques the dangers of a world where personal freedoms are sacrificed in the name of progress and community. Rabbi, why bring these two together? What was in your mind?
Well, in my mind, actually, was a story about the Tower of Babel, because most people, when they talk about Noah, they talk about the flood and the devastation as a result and what happened afterward. But there is a very important story in chapter 11, and we are not talking here about, the American law of bankruptcy. There is chapter 11 in Genesis talking about the story that after the flood, the people who were in the area of what we call today Mesopotamia, they gathered to build a tower. And God came to see the tower, and he didn't like what he saw, and he dispersed all the people all over the world. And we know it today. When they spoke only one language. Now they spoke 70 languages. And this is a remarkable story about technology progress. The ability of the people to create a brick was a revolution much greater than the internet, and I'll tell you why. Because until then, human beings spend most of their life on building their house, and the rain came and destroyed the house, and they had to rebuild it all over again and again and again and again. This is a story of the human race until they were able to take simple materials available everywhere, the earth, and to create a brick by burning it and to make it durable for all the rains, earthquake maybe, and everything else. Now think about it. Once you have the time, and you don't have to fix your house and to prepare it for the rain season or after the rain and so on, you get time on your hands. And this is the only way to start to develop culture, philosophy, people thinking about their life, which was impossible before. Let's take the feminist movement. Until women had to do everything, to make their laundry themselves and to clean all the time the house and to go and get their food. Sometimes they had to grow the food in the garden. There was no room for women to develop as thinkers, as independent people. The moment they got the time on their hand, because they could throw the laundry to the laundry machine, and then today we have the dishwashers and many other technology that enable you to enjoy your time and to do very important things with your life. This is exactly what happened after the Mabul. But for some reason, and we are going to discuss it, God could not accept it, could not accept what he saw. And apparently he saw some of the issues that technology brings when spread. And that's why I took this book, because I think that many of the dangers which are described very well in the circle are the dangers that the people in the generation after the flood and the people in Babel faced, and to a great extent These are the things that we face today. That's why I wanted to combine all of them together, because I don't think that in our generation there is a more important chapter in Bereshit than reading chapter 11 in Bereshit, which describe what happened in Dora Palaga, in this generation where God dispersed all the people all over the world.
Interesting. And there's another place in the Torah where it speaks about the development of such materials as well. And that's in Egypt when the Jews were building for their taskmasters. I read an anthropological study once. I was trying to determine whether, in fact, there is any evidence of the Jews in Egypt and the Jews in the desert. It's hard to find. But when it comes to building as slaves and the materials that the Torah describes, apparently that was exactly what the Egyptians used at that time.
Absolutely. And listen, I think I read it once in Rabbi Sachs' books. You know, human beings know that they are here for a certain number of years. And we want to eternalize ourselves. We don't want to think for a second that we came here and one day we are not going to be here anymore. And the question is how you deal with it. And many civilizations build magnificent buildings. Some of them exist until this very day. And by the way, it's common to every empire until this very day. You build magnificent monuments to tell the world 2,000 years down the road, I was here. I was important. You don't know me anymore, but I was here. The Jewish approach is very, very different. We are actually cannot do monuments. We cannot do pestle and idols. And shuls today are very beautiful, but they used to be very simple and very basic with no magnificent pictures or statues around the wall. You go to some of the churches, like it's like going into beautiful museum. We were never people of material objects to be memorized by. We are the people of ideas, and the ideas can go down the history, and they are much more powerful than this monument that eventually turned to dust and archaeological sites.
Rabbi, throughout history, there have been more than just our flood story within various cultures. There's the epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known flood narratives. It features Utnapishtim, who builds a boat to survive a great flood sent by the gods. There's the Deucalion myth, the Greek mythology. Zeus floods the earth to cleanse it of human wickedness, and his wife Perea survives by building a chest. The Hindu flood story, the Aboriginal Australian rainbow serpent, the Popol Vuh. This sacred text recounts how the gods created humans from maize, and after a failed attempt, they sent a flood to destroy the first creations. What is it about a flood story which is so important to our studies and so important to other cultures?
First of all, I do believe that in many cultures, floods indeed happen. I don't know if to the extent that the Torah describes, but certainly in olden days, you think about tsunamis, you think about floods, powerful floods that happened once, let's say, in 100 years, and people did not have the technology or the tools to fight it. And I can see like thousands of kilometer squares flooded with water, taking away everything that was there. I think it also contained the message that sometimes all your efforts will go down the drain, so to speak. Now, not pun, no pun intended, but and you have to rebuild all of it from the very beginning. Our story is a moral story. That's the difference between the story of Noah and the story of Gilgamesh that describe just a natural disaster. The story is that floods happen because lacking moral behaviors, number one. Number two, the world can be built only through acts of kindness. The Teva, this Noach Ark, is basically a school for Chesed. You have to maintain the food for all the animals, to care about others. This is the foundation of the new world. And the challenges that come afterwards. It's not a simple thing to see a world destroyed and the story about Noach become drunk. I think it's quite normal. People who remember the world before, and now they go outside the Teva and everything destroyed. All the human experience, all the houses, all the hard work, as you described, Lo Aleinu, when you lose a beloved one and all your work is just gone.
Yes.
Some people cannot take it, and Noach could not take it, and he became drunk. He found the alcohol as a refuge to his inability to deal with the new world.
But Rabbi, let's talk about the Teva for a moment. The Teva is the ark. The Torah is very instructional, as it is for the Mishkan, the tabernacle, about how to build it. It gives you specifics of the length, of the width, of the height. It tells you that it has to have 3 floors. It tells you that you need to put in a window. Well, why such drama that is being created around the building of it? Just say build a Teva. You'll figure it out.
That's a very hard question. Do you have an answer? I will give you later my answer, but what do you think about it?
I love
you're right. Indeed, the Mishkan and the Teva. And I'll tell you one more thing. A few years ago, I decided to learn the Tanakh from cover to cover. It's actually quite an operation. And the only prakim that I had enormous difficulty with are the prakim in Yechezkel, describing the third Beit HaMikdash. Now, why it's so difficult? Avrum, this is like describing a blueprint of an architect in words. If you are not an architect yourself, you can read it and all the little details of every pillar and what was on every pillar and what was it covered with and so on and so on. It's like 3 to 5 chapters that for me were the hardest in the entire Tanakh. And I asked myself the same question. What's the point? Just, give it to someone, give him like why we have to talk about every little detail, like the exact distance from one gate to another, and on your way, what do you cross and what do you see on your right and what do you see on your left? Why? It's so, first of all, it's hard to grasp, and I can tell you that many Mefarshim come with different pictures about what is written over there. But Bechlal, like the Tanakh is a story about morals, about people, about ideas. And here you get like architectural a map that seems to have no significance. So what is your answer to your own question?
I think you helped me with my answer a few minutes ago when you described the Teva, the ark, as being an education, a school of chesed, of kindness. I think that by God bringing down the flood and saving Noach and his 3 sons and their wives, his wife, and the animals, that was a form of chesed from God, of kindness. But I don't think the chesed started when the rain started to fall or when the rain stopped and they came down off the ark. I think the chesed started the moment that Noah started to gather the wood and to hammer it together. And he was very, very specific in how it should look. Like one of the floors in the Teva was for the humans, another one was for the animals, and the third was for the animals' byproducts, the defecation, and so on and so forth. Why? You want to just toss it over the side, right? That's a form of chesed, right? So God said to him, you need 3 floors. These are animals. You need to take care of them. You need to love them and nurture them. And this is part of what you're going to do. Chesed started when God commanded Noach to build the Teva, and in each and every one of his moves. That's what I think.
Yes, and I would add one more thing. This is the explanation I gave myself after reading this tidy description of the third Beit HaMikdash, which I have to say, if you ask me today any question about it, I will not be able to tell you how the third Beit HaMikdash is going to look like upon what I read on Yechezkel. However, sometimes we go somewhere and we remember every detail about it. A person who met his wife for the first time, afterwards she became his wife. He remembered the color of the dress she came with, the hair, tisroket, how do you say it? Like the hair.
Combed and
yeah,
coiffed.
exactly. Like he remembered everything because it's important for him. It was a unique moment. So the idea of a third Beit HaMikdash in the future is so dear to us that like dealing with the little details is not actually dealing with the little details. It's about showing how close it's to your heart. And here's the story with the Teva, I think is quite the same, because this idea, you just build a new world. You want to know everything about the place that the world was created in. And now I want to tell you something more than that. I'm talking about the rebirth of the world. Now think about the picture here. You have flood all over, water all over you, darkness, rain all the time. And like a little family is in the middle of it, eventually delivered out of the Teva. Don't you have here kind of a birth, a labor, a new world? I think the picture to me of the Teva is the baby in the womb. So you want to remember every detail about it.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And I will tell you something. I've watched millions and millions of videos about recreational vehicles. Have you ever been in an RV?
What is RV?
You know, it's a house.
Oh, yeah. The one we thought once or twice to take RV to our trips. When I was a little bit younger, I guess at the time that you were younger too, I took my 8 kids to travel through America. And we came to, everything from California to Oregon, through the prairies. It was beautiful. And we thought to take RV. We thought about taking RV. But eventually, every night we wanted to feel like back at home, like not on the road. And we were in motels. I don't know if we did the right thing or not.
No, you didn't. You didn't do the right thing.
I didn't do. Okay, maybe next time, in the next Gilgul.
The reason I tell you this is because I owned an RV, a 1989 Winnebago with a Toyota chassis, and it was splendid. And I had it for 4 or 5 years, and then I sold it. But I remember that the fellow whom I bought it from was so specific about the changes that he made to that Winnebago on the back of the truck.
Oh, wow.
And he could point out, Rabbi, when I first met him and I was buying it from him, he says, you see over here, he put in a fireplace in the RV. It was beautiful. You see over here, there's an external light that when you're doing a bonfire late at night, you can turn on this light. And so many other details within the RV that made it so personal to him and later on personal to me. When you fix your home and you know where each 2x4 goes and the nails that you use, there's a relationship that you build with that material good that you may not have otherwise. My guess is that Noach knew how to repair the Teva if and when it broke, right? Because he knew it, he built it. So his relation to that material piece was very, very powerful.
Wow, that's a very powerful example. And one of the things I really love about our podcast is that every podcast, Avrum, I learn something new about your past life.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. You are more interesting than I think in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. And then later on, I start to get a little boring, but. Rabbi, we are talking today about Parshat Noach, and we're doing that through the lens of the book, The Circle. A question for you about that. How does Noach's responsibility to save the world parallel the ethical dilemmas faced by the characters in the circle regarding technology and privacy?
Well, I think the big question that actually we are dealing with in Parshat Noach, but I want to be more precise. I think this is the major issue of the Torah and maybe the entire Bible, is the constant struggle between humans and God. What caused to the Mabul? How the flood came to be? This was not a plan of God, like at a certain point to destroy everything he did. The issue is that people misuse their power, and to the point where all the moral fabric of the world was destroyed. God created the world so people are behaving in a moral way. Once they lost it, there is no reason to have a world. And that's why we had the flood. Now, I want to talk about the name Noach. You know what is Noach in Hebrew? Comfortable.
Yeah.
And our sages are telling us that he got this name as a prophecy for what he's going to do in the future. Noach developed the tool that enabled people to go to the field, to plow it, and to plant it, and life changed completely. Technology made the life of people much more comfortable, much more Noach, and in a way, he brought a great blessing to the world, but at the same time, he brought a curse to the world. Because when people have time on their hand, it depends on them how they are going to use it. Some people will use it to read books, to play music, to help each other. Some people will misuse it to gain power and to oppress the people under them. And that's what happened. That's why the Mabul came. The struggle of the circle is quite the same, where technology is going to lead society. And the ideals in the beginning are great. You want to make one society, like in the Tower of Babel, by the way. They wanted to make a name for themselves and to have a one big city, and everyone will speak the same language and everything will be so wonderful. Every time that I teach, by the way, chapter 11 in Bereshit, through whom I teach it, through the song of John Lennon, Imagine, because this is exactly what Imagine was about. Like a world, no borders, everyone lives with and hugging the other one, and it looks amazing. But human beings can take the most amazing things and to oppress people under them, as it happened in the circle. The need for truth and lack of privacy, and the ability that everyone's lives are going to be transparent, is ruining the foundation of society. And that's exactly what happened with Noach, the generation of Noach, and that's exactly what happened in the generation after Noach with the Tower of Babel.
You're just veering off for one moment. Babble is a word that we use in English. It means to babble, to just talk on, like almost not expressing anything of any importance. One of the things that the people who built the Tower of Babel wanted, what like you're saying, was oneness, that everybody should be the same. There should be one language. God sends them off into the world and creates 70 language, and one can't understand the next. I never entirely understood why breaking up the languages would have such a incredible difference on the people.
Excellent. I'm very happy that you bring it up because it helped me to tie it to our life. Listen, what God did was actually saving the Jewish people later. I want to explain what I say because this is quite a statement. Because when you read the story about the Tower of Babel, you don't know anything about Jewish people. There were no Jewish people at the time. Avrum will appear in the next Parsha. And this is exactly the point. The appearance of Avrum on the scene is tied to what happened in the Tower of Babel. I will explain it now. This is wonderful when everyone is living together, speaking the same language. Many times I think about the Tower of Babel and I look towards the south of Toronto and I see the magnificent CN Tower and I think, wow, that's exactly what the Torah describes here. It's a tower in the middle of the city, or maybe on the southern border of the city, and everyone can see it, and everyone comes together, and people come here from Korea and from China and from Israel and from England, and we all like one a big family. And as long as it's good, it's excellent, it's fantastic. But what happened, Avrum, when a society is united against an idea, against certain people who think different than you? Then this unity turned to be the most dangerous thing for the individual. You have a society that all live together, all speak the same language. There is no other language, and language is not only like the words, it's ideas. Every language contains different references. I'll give you one example. In Hebrew you say Yeled Yafeh. In English, Yeled Yafeh means the subject is the Yeled, the boy. Yafeh is a beautiful boy or a beautiful girl. But in English you don't say girl beautiful or a boy beautiful, you say a beautiful boy. Mm-hmm. You think it's just like by coincidence? I don't think so. I think that every language brings something different, a different idea into the arena of the culture of this nation. And I do think, for example, that maybe in certain languages, what caught your eye is the beauty of a certain building, person, and so on. Your eye or your reference is about the beauty of the object. In the Jewish thought, beauty is secondary. Yeled Yafeh. First of all, he's a human being. He's a boy, he's a girl, he's a person. Only then the description, which is external to the object itself, come into play. And in the same way, I do believe that every language brings different idea and different way of thinking. Languages are much more than just, words that comes to communicate. So think about anti-Semitism that we see these days, and think about social media. Mm-hmm. People in Japan who never saw a Jew, people in Germany or France, people in Russia, Ukraine, Canada, Arab countries, they all have now social media. They can communicate to each other like places have no significance anymore. Even languages don't have significance, because if you ever saw Twitter or others, you can do Google Translate, and to read what a person wrote in Farsi, a language that I don't know a word in, but you can see what he actually said by translating it. And that's what gave anti-Semitism such a power in our days, to go from one university to another, where people can hate the Jews, although they have no ties to each other. And God, with his infinite wisdom, saw it. The moment you are going to have a continent that speaks only one language, only one culture, when a person will come with a different idea, as Avrum came with the idea that challenged the kings and the rulers of the time, they will have no problem to get rid of him. Easily. He will not have a place to run from, and they will kill him. There will be no new ideas. And the only way to deal with it was, we are going to have 70 nations. If 30 of them are going to be against the Jews, there will be at least one country that the Jew will be able to flood and to live in. Think about America. Think about Germany. The Jews who could leave Europe found a place. Now, can you imagine what would happen if America and Germany would be like the same thing? As John Lennon said, like no boundaries, everyone is the same. I will tell you what, we will not sit today and speak to each other in this podcast. The world entirely will kill all the Jews in the world. So Avram Avinu could come and think about the story. Lech lecha me'artzecha mimoladetcha mibeit avicha. This was possible. There was countries that were different in their ideas and their ideology than the place that he came from. If the people of Babel would be successful in building a place where everyone will be the same, Jews will not be able to exist. And it's the infinite wisdom of God that made 70 nations, that even if one is going to kill the Jews will have another place to go into. And this story of the Babel is a story how God prepared the platform of the world for Jewish existence. That's the way I read it.
And now I know why I missed you, you know. That was epic. That was epic, Devar Torah. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Nicely done. You know, Rabbi, there's so much discussion in many cultures about the flood story. There are books written about it. There are movies made about it. Here are some movies that have been made about the flood. One is called Noah from 2014, directed by Darren Aronofsky. This film offers a dramatic interpretation of the biblical story starring Russell Crowe as Noah. The Ark, 2015. Evan Almighty was a spoof, comedic take on the Noah story. It's kind of silly, actually. Noah's Ark, 1999, and so on. And there are a number of books that have been written about the flood as well. Noah's Ark by Jerry Pinkney, a beautifully illustrated children's book that retells the classic story with vivid art and engaging prose. Noah's Children by David A. Adler, a children's book that offers a simplified version of the Torah, of the Noah story, focusing on the lessons of kindness and caring for animals. Now, in that light, I have a Devar Torah that I would like to share with you, given your permission, please. When the flood stopped, what did Noah do? He sent out a raven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the first thing.
Let me read the actual text. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark. Again, we talk about the window being an important piece of the development of the ark, which he had made. He sent out the raven. He sent out the raven, and it kept going and returning until the waters dried from upon the earth. Then he sent out the dove from him. The Torah says from him, not like the raven. He just sent it out. The dove he sent out from him to see whether the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove could not find a resting place for the soles of its foot. Beautiful imagery here.
Yeah.
And it returned to him to the ark, for water was upon the surface of the earth. Again, not the Torah doesn't say he returned to the ark. It returned to him. So he put forth his hand. Can imagine. You've seen people with birds. They put out their hand and the bird lands on it. And he took it and he brought it to him, to the ark. He waited another 7 days and again sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, an olive leaf it had plucked with its bill. And Noah knew that the waters had subsided upon the earth. Then he waited again another 7 days, and he sent the dove forth, and it did not return to him again. When I learned this, and I was very particular about the words to him, which was repeated over and over, I thought to myself, when does one embrace an entity, an animal? I have a cat. Sometimes I'll hold it very tightly. What is that? It's an expression of love. It's an expression of appreciation of God's creation. So I believe that this part of the Parsha is telling us about Noah's appreciation for that bird. for birds in general, for the animals. And what's very, very interesting is it's also teaching us something about nature. Because why? The dove came back with an olive branch in its mouth. And Rashi says, what is an olive branch? It's very, very bitter. It's a very bitter thing. It's not nice to taste. Comes back to Noah. He's got this olive branch. What is he telling Noah? What he's saying is, Noah, I would rather be free and have this olive branch than to be in captivity. I'm sorry, even though you're embracing me so beautifully, and have sweet, sweet food. So these few psukim are really a demonstration of the incredible love and embrace that Noah had for that dove, and probably subsequently all the animals, and the importance of setting our animals free when required. Isn't that nice?
It's beautiful. I just want to add one little thing to it. I think, again, as someone who has a pet, you might appreciate it. I think I heard it in the name of the Natziv. He was a famous Torah scholar about 120 years ago in Lithuania. So he asked a very simple question. Listen, Noah took into the ark, according to the story of the Torah, couples of every animal existed on earth. Now, he sent away the raven. He risked eliminating from the world one species. How do you call it?
Species. Very good. Yeah,
species. Entirely. Let's imagine that the raven will fly too far and will not find a place to land on. He will die. And you will not have ravens in the world anymore, because it was Zachar and Nekiva, male and female. And how Noah was allowed to do something like this? And the same question with the dove. So listen what he said. He said the dove and the raven were not part of the Teva. They were the pets of Noah from before. And therefore, even if something Chaz v'Chalila would happen to them, it will not affect the continuity of this species later. And, it's very interesting. We didn't talk about Dickens yet, although he was certainly one of the greatest writers of the history of the world. And I think in one of his books, he described the guy, the master of the thieves in London, the person who, the pet, had a raven on his shoulder. And here in Canada or United States, we don't used to it, but in many cultures, raven are pets. And it's interesting how the Natziv actually talk about it. So, you have a pet. I told you I don't, but it's interesting that it's apparently a very old thing for people to have a pet. Very unusual one. So can you imagine, like Noah? Since I read this parish, I always, when I try to imagine Noah, I see a person with on one shoulder like a black raven, and on the other one like a beautiful white dove. I'm not sure this was what it is, but in our imagination, we have to have some picture.
Well, that's a lovely thought. Lovely thought. Now, Rabbi, you know that I've been playing around with AI a little bit, and I have come up with a poem for Parsha Noah. Would you like to hear it?
Listen, I'm going to read it. I have to say, I have one of my daughters, Amuna. She said, "Abba, tell Avrum that he should read like real poems, not AI poems." And I said, he loves the poems. He will continue to read them. And here you proof my point.
No. Tell her she has an excellent point. She really does, right? But I am mesmerized by what's upon us. We are ascending the ark as we speak, Rabbi, and we are heading into the AI world, and no one knows what's going to be. Nobody knows what's going to be.
You know what? Let me tell you. I actually know, after reading the Parsha, there will be some something is going to happen. It's like this can turn. This can turn.
Yes.
Hopefully, the human race will learn how to use it as an unbelievable bracha to the world. What I'm afraid that it's going to cause the opposite. Now, I'm not, innovator. I don't understand fully the idea even behind the AI. But I hear great people like Elon Musk, who apparently knows one thing or two about AI, expressing a great concern to society. Because we are good people. We are going to read poems. But at the same time, I'm sure that somewhere in Tehran or in Yemen or who knows where, he takes the AI, and one of the questions they present to him is, how can I kill as many Jews as I can? And this is very dangerous. So right now that we read the poems, we have to remember that there is always like a flip side to it. And we have to be very careful about this kind of technologies.
Oh, well said. Well said.
Which are developed.
All right, here's my poem with all of that. In ancient days when whispers grew, a world once bright, now shadowed blue, Noah stood a faithful man with dreams of peace and hope's grand plan. The skies turned dark, the heavens wept, a promise broken, a silence kept. The rivers swelled, the mountains bowed, nature's fury unleashed, fierce and loud. But in his heart a spark remained, a covenant made, a love unchained. He built the ark with a steady hand, a sanctuary amidst the lands. 2 by 2 the creatures came, a dance of life in stormy frame. The lion roared, the dove took flight. In chaos they found a guiding light. 40 days the water rose, yet hope endured through rain and woes. When at last the sun broke free, a rainbow arched, a sign to see. With every drop that kissed the ground, a promise whispered all around, that life would bloom, that love would mend, in every storm their strength to bend. So here we stand on shores of time with echoes of tale sublime. Noah's heart, a beacon bright, reminds us all to seek the light. V'zehu zeh.
Very, very beautiful. And
Rabbi, any concluding words here before we head into the rest of the week?
I think this parsha is a very powerful one to tell us what can happen when we misuse our power, when we misuse technology, when we seek to control other people's life. This is a huge sign of stop, caution, be careful. And especially these days where we read about all the conflicts over the world, especially what's going on in Israel. I just hope that people will use this magnificent technology that we experience for the right things and not to the bad ones.
Amen. Rabbi, I just want to add to that, that a few years ago, I drove out to Prince Edward Island with my friend Bert Surfati in my RV. And on the first day of driving, I think we drove 10 hours. We got to, I believe we got to we stayed in Quebec. Then we went to New Brunswick. And as we were approaching New Brunswick, I saw in the sky, and tell me if you've ever seen such a thing, I saw a double rainbow.
I saw.
Where did you see yours? Do you know?
Where did I see it? It was here in Toronto, actually, above the lake. I did see a double rainbow. I saw another one actually in Utah. Also, beautiful sight. The next thing that happened, after we drove a safari, and 8 kids, think about it, like safari car, and we schlepped everything on the roof of the car. And after we drove, seeing the rainbow and take some pictures that I'm sure I stored somewhere because it was before the cell phone time, so it's a real picture. There was a wind. I think it was like a mini tornado or something like this, and everything from the roof started to fly around the car, like all our stuff and everything. It took me like an hour just to gather it from the fields around. So that's when I saw the double rainbow.
So it's a beautiful sight, you would agree. And I remember seeing that double rainbow and I thought, I'm seeing double beauty. Because I felt for a moment that even if the Torah hadn't told me that God brought the rainbow forth in order to express his covenant with the people of the world, I still would have seen the beauty in it. And still would have maybe defined in a different way, perhaps, but a covenant that exists between us and the heavens, between us and God, because it is so exquisite. And if you ever study colors, I'm an artist, I'm a bit of an expressionist, I'm a Fauvist, and Fauvists are very interested in colors, that you will see that there is such complexity to the rainbow, but such a balance to it as well. And so I want to conclude our podcast here, our shiur, our class, by reminding people that while the story of the flood is very destructive, it's a very destructive story, but it also ends with such beauty. And indicative of that is the stunning, gorgeous rainbow that no matter how you're feeling, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through in life, when you're driving after a rainfall and you see that rainfall, you see that rainbow, you stop for a moment. It takes away your breath. And you remember that the beauty that we have amongst us, within us, around us, and the covenant that we have with God. Seder?
Beautiful. You know, just to add one little thought to it, you know, the rainbow is like a bow and arrow. And think about the direction of the arrow. If you will take the bow and stretch the arrow and release it, where the arrow is going to fly to?
Up, straight forward, what?
Upward. Mm-hmm. It's like Hashem says, the shape of the arrow is going to be, I'm going to take responsibility for the mistake of my children. Mm-hmm. The arrow will come to me, not to them.
Oh,
nice. The flood happened.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
And as parents, we know it very, very well. We prefer always to suffer ourselves and not to let our child to suffer.
Folks, I want to conclude as we began this podcast, and I will do that by posting a picture of Gilad Zachrenu Levracha with his beautiful 5 children. And Rabbi, together with you, we wish that family well, and we thank them from the depths of our heart for not only protecting Eretz Yisrael, the state of Israel, but for all Jews everywhere, in Toronto, in Baltimore, in New York, in France, everywhere. And we thank him so much for his courage and for being such a warrior for the Jewish people. And until we meet again, have a beautiful week, a safe one. I'm Yisrael Chai. Be proud to be a Jew. We are a beautiful people, and we really, really are thankful that you spend time together with myself and Rabbi Gemara every week on Parsha Prose. Sei gesund, go in health.